Hi guys, we have till 16.18. Sorry that I'm doing this a bit later. I've been at work all day with my mum, just me and her. So yeah, I like my hair done like this. Yesterday it was still like in the braid knot thing, I think, or something like that. But I like having it like this. Mum said it was like wild. Anyway, let's continue on with this. It is Monday. It's been very hot today. Let's get started. To be even with her, he struck out for the shore, but the cotton gown greatly impelled his efforts, and when at length he touched land, he found it hard to climb up the steep bank unassisted. He had to take a minute or two to recover his breath. Then, gathering his wet skirts well over his arms, he started to run after the barge as fast as his legs would carry him. Is it just me or is it a bit glitchy? I think it is glitchy, but oh well. Sorry, it's a bit glitchy though, guys. Wild with interrogation and thirsting for revenge, the bad woman was still laughing when he drew up level with her. "Put yourself through your mango washerwoman," she called out. "An eye in your face and crimpet, and you'll pass for quite a decent-looking toad." Toad never paused to reply. Solid revenge was what he wanted, not cheap, windy verbal trumpets, though he had a thing or two in his mind that he would have liked to say. He saw what he wanted ahead of him. Running swiftly on, he overtook the horse, unfastened the tie rope and chased off, jumped lightly on the horse's back, and urged it to a gallop by kicking it viciously in the sides. He steered for the open country, abandoning the two-to-oak path and swinging his steed down a rutty lane. Once he looked back and saw that the barge had run a gut round on the other side of the canal, and the bad woman was gesticulating wildly and shouting, "Stop, stop! I've heard that song before," said Toad, laughing, as he continued to speed his steed onward in its wild career. The barge horse was not capable of any substantial effort, and its gallop soon subsided into a trot, and its trot into an easy walk, but Toad was quite content with this, knowing that he, at any rate, was moving, and the barge was not. He had quite recovered his temper now that he had done something he thought really clever, and he was satisfied to jog along quietly in the sun, taking advantage of any byways and bridle paths, and trying to forget how very long it was since he had had a square meal, till the candle had been left very far behind him. He had travelled some miles, his horse and he, and was feeling drowsy in the hot sun, when the horse stopped, lowered his head, and began to nibble the grass, and Toad, waking up, just saved himself from falling off by an effort. He looked about him and found he was on a wild common watered with patches of grass and bramble as far as he could see. Near him stood a dingy convent, and beside it was a man sitting on a bucket turned upside down, very busy smoking and staring into the wide world. A fire of sticks was burning nearby, and over the fire hung an iron pot, and out of the pot came both buildings and curlings. I think that's what it's supposed to be for that bit. And a large substantial steepness also smells, warm, rich, and variety smells that twined and twisted and reached themselves at last into one complete, raw, trust, perfect smell that seemed like the very soul of nature taking form and appearing to her children, a true goddess, a mother of solace and comfort. Toad now knew well that he had not been really hungry before. What he had felt earlier in the day had been a mere qualm. This was the real thing at last, and no mistake, and it would have to be dealt with speedily too, or there would be trouble for somebody or something. He looked the Crispy over carefully, wondered directly whether it would be easier to fight him or cajole him. So there he sat and sniffed and looked at the Crispy, and Crispy sat and smoked and looked at him. Presently the Crispy took his pipe out of his mouth and smirked and remarked in a careless way, "Want to sell that horse of yours?" Toad was completely taken aback. He did not know the Crispies were very fond of horse stealing and never missed an opportunity, and he had not reflected that currents were always on the move. Took a deal of drying. It had not occurred to him to turn the horse into cash, but the Crispy suggestion seemed to smooth the way towards the two things he wanted so badly. Ready money and a solid breakfast. "What?" he said. "Me sell this beautiful young horse of mine? Oh no, it's out of question. Who's going to take the washing home to my customers every week?" "Besides, I'm too fond of him, and he simply jolts on me." "Try another donkey," suggested the Crispy. "Some people do." "You don't seem to," continued Toad. "That this fine horse of mine is a cut above you altogether. He's a blood horse. He is partly, not the part you see, of course another part, and he's a prize hanky too. In his time, that was the time before you knew him, but you can still tell it on him at a glance if you understand anything about horses. No, it's not to be thought of for a moment. All the same, how much might you be disposed to offer me for this beautiful young horse of mine?" The Crispy looked the horse over, and then he looked Toad over with real care, and looked at the horse again. "Shilling a leg," he said briefly, and turned away, continued to smoke and tried to stir the wild wood out of Clemence's. I don't know what it says. "A shilling a leg?" cried Toad. "If you please, I must take a little time to work that out, and just see what it comes to." He climbed down off his horse and left it to graze, and sat by the Crispy and did sums on his finger, and at last he said, "A shilling leg? Why, that comes to exactly 4 shillings, and no more." "Oh no, I could not think of accepting 4 shillings for this beautiful young horse of mine." "Well," said the Crispy, "I'll tell you what I will do. I'll make it 5 shillings, and that's 3 and 16 pence more than the animal's worth, and that's my last word." Then Toad sat and pondered long and deeply, for he was hungry and quite penniless, and still some way he knew not know how far from home, and enemies might still be looking for him. To be in such a situation, 5 shillings may be very appeal at a large sum of money. On the other hand, it did not seem very much to get for a horse, but then again the horse hadn't cost him anything, so whatever he got was all clear proof. At last he said firmly, "Look here, Crispy, I'll tell you what we will do. This is my last word. You shall hand me over 16 shillings and 6pence, cash down, and further in addition therefore, you shall give me as much breakfast as I can possibly eat, at one sitting, of course, out of the iron pot of yours that keeps sending forth such delicious and exciting smells. In return, I will make over to you my spirited young horse, with all the beautiful harnesses and trappings that are on him, freely thrown in. If that's not good enough for you, so say so, and I'll be getting on. I know a man near here who's wanted this horse of mine for years. The goodspeed grumbled frightfully, and declared if he did a few more deals of that sort, he'd be ruined. But in the end he launched a dirty canvas bag out of the depths of his trouser pocket and counted out 6 shillings and 6pence. Into Toad's paw. Then he disappeared into the cabin for an instant and returned with a large iron plate and a knife, a fork and spoon. He tilted up the pot, and a glorious steam of hot rich stew gumbled in the plate. It was indeed the most beautiful stew in the world, being of partridges and peasants and chickens and hares and rabbits and hens and guinea fowls and one or two other things. Toad took the plate on his lap, almost crying, and stuffed and kept asking for more, and then the goodspeed never grumbled at him. He thought that he'd never eaten so good a breakfast in all his life. We're going to leave it there, and I might do this on Wednesday, to be honest, because it's getting a bit hard to do it. But I don't worry. I'll just do it on Saturday. I nearly finished this book now, so I might be able to read it. But guys, before I go, I think we've almost finished chapter 10. Yeah. So on page 190, we only have to get on to page 200 before chapter 11. So, bye guys. Have a lovely night, day, afternoon, evening. It depends where you are. So, see ya.